This Boost foam in the sneakerhead community had a stranglehold on the title of most comfortable foam for well over a decade. And even still to this day, it's still in the conversation. Anytime you talk about comfortable boots and shoes, comfortable sneakers, Boost foam was in the conversation. So when I heard that Adidas had a hiking boot that had this foam in it, it really piqued my interest because hiking boots are notoriously uncomfortable, and the idea of having the world's most comfortable foam in a hiking boot sounded pretty interesting to me. And so we're gonna cut this thing in half, run it through our test to really see if Adidas pulled off making one of the most comfortable hiking boots of all time, why Boost foam is so loved by everybody, and if Adidas can actually make a hiking boot, or if this is just an extra high top sneaker in the form of a boot. Despite how common foam is today, it's arguably one of the most important inventions of the 20th century, and the fact that it's so common and never really thought about shows how important and impactful it was, because we just take for granted that everything was just a little bit harder back in the day before foam, before the soft, impact resisting, thermal regulating material was invented. And it's an odd sentence to say that everything was a little bit harder, but it is true. Think about how much foam is in everything that we interact with on a daily basis. So when was this marvel of material science invented? Well, it was discovered or invented on accident, like a lot of good discoveries, because in 1937, the chemists Dr. Otto Bayer and Farben Fabriken Bayer, today Bayer AG, stumbled into the polyurethane PUR foam by chance when the starting compounds for foam were mixed together in a waste bin, causing the chemicals to mix, aerating the material with lots of little teeny bubbles, and as it cured and solidified, that's what caused that squishiness that we know foam today, because obviously you should know what foam is. It's not the FOME that we've heard recently. It's just a material that has tiny microscopic little bubbles in it that as you squish it, those collapse and spring back into place, creating the squish. Pretty self-explanatory. And you would think that people would just immediately want everything made out of foam, but it took a lot of time to actually be applied to everything in our everyday lives, like a lot of new discoveries, partially because it was so expensive and unrefined, and it seems like the human imagination hadn't quite caught up to the potential of the material. Because if you remember from our Dr. Martin videos, even as early as 1945, people like Dr. Martin were trying to figure out ways to make footwear more comfortable, and this is a couple decades after foam was invented. But as far as I can tell, the first really big successful footwear featuring foam wasn't until 1971 with the Nike Cortez. That's 34 years after the invention of foam. So what about Boost foam? When was it invented? Well, it wasn't until 2013 when Adidas collaborated with German chemical company BASF to develop this Boost foam, but it was used almost exclusively in sneakers. But around that time, there was a new upswing in hiking and trail running in the US market, with an estimated over 5 million Americans participating in just trail running alone. And Adidas saw this opportunity coming and formed a division in Adidas called Adidas Outdoors. And in 2011, Adidas Outdoors introduced the Terrex collection, which is part of this boot is part of, which was, in their words, built for support on uneven ground, Terrex shoes for hiking and trail running. And with the introduction of Boost foam in 2013, it was only a matter of time before Boost foam was eventually used in trail running and hiking footwear. And now over a decade later, they're still producing hiking footwear and regular footwear with Boost foam, like this one we're cutting apart today. So I've cut apart hundreds of shoes at this point, and I think we've made the most durable sneaker that money can buy. This sneaker is built like a boot, and we called it SMUGS, which stands for Sneakers Made Using Good or Summer Mugs, if you know what the mugs are. And I designed it with Goro because they're already mostly there. They specialize in making arguably the most durable sneakers that money can buy, because you can resole them over and over and over, and they use the finest materials. And they won the most durable sneaker in the White Sneaker series a couple years ago. So when it came to making a sneaker built like a boot, they're really the only choice, because essentially what I did was I took a big old leather steroid syringe and just popped it into a pair of what they're already making and just beefed it up to the max. Beefed it up to that boot standard by using Horween's Chrome Excel. It's 2.5 millimeters thick, twice as thick as basically any other sneaker leather. We made it as simple as a heritage boot by removing all the unnecessary bits like the lining, while still maintaining the leather insole, the Blake stitch, the sidewall stitch. So when your foot's in this, your foot is wrapped all in leather. It doesn't touch any synthetics. And lots of other little details that we'll go over in the cut in half video that you really only see in like $600 handmade boots. And my favorite thing is these are gonna age like fine wine. Like, look at this one already compared to the brand new ones. And that's cool because you know what it's like. As soon as you start wearing a sneaker, they go downhill. They get uglier, they get stinkier, they get worse fitting, they get uncomfortable. These sneakers are only gonna get better with age. They're gonna get more comfortable, and they're not gonna smell like your old pair of Converse. They're gonna smell like some rich Chrome Excel, which is, when you take these off, it smells strong like Chrome Excel. It's pretty gnarly. And this was actually the very first collaboration we were working on with Goro. But then the mugs were way more popular than we expected. So now all you guys that want to wear your mugs all year round, or you fellas that couldn't get your mugs because you live in hot climates like in the South, you're in luck because it's based off of the mugs. It's the same pattern we developed with them. So it's going to fit like mugs, it's going to feel like mugs, but you can wear them basically whenever you want. There's only going to be so many available, so it's limited quantities, and they're released April 25th. So if you don't want to miss out on a pair, sign up for the limited edition email list to get early access. And thank you guys for checking these out. They're so sick, so check them out below. So what is this boot? Well, the brand is Adidas. The style is the Terrex Free Hiker Explorer Gore-Tex Parley. They weigh 1 pound, 1 ounces, so very, very light. They retail for $250, which is not cheap for a foam-based hiking shoe or boot. And they're made in China. And the way that Adidas positions this boot is the Free Hiker Explorer Gore-Tex shoes are the ultimate footwear for any true outdoor advocate. The new Gore-Tex laminate includes an innovative EPE membrane, which combines waterproof and breathability with a responsible material choice, featuring our Boost midsole for long-lasting cushioning, energy return, and high adaptability, fused with our Continental rubber outsole for extraordinary traction in wet and dry conditions. From problem to performance, our canvas upper is made in part with Parley Ocean plastic, containing at least 50% Parley Ocean plastic and 50% recycled polyester. From exploring downtown to a walk in the park, these everyday shoes are ready for your daily adventures. If you want a pair of these, check them out. The link in our description. But before we go over the Boost foam and see if it is actually Boost foam and if it's any different or different densities in their sneakers, let's go over the rest of the materials and see if this is actually a boot or if it's just an extra high top sneaker. So like they said in the description, the upper is a canvas, which I really love canvas. It's super durable, it's breathable, it's flexible, and it's a super old school material. And I expected to see a lot more high-tech marketing jargony material in this, so I thought it was kind of cool that they use canvas, and obviously it's the recycled polyester, and so it's not cotton canvas like the true sense. But if you didn't know, canvas was invented in the 1500s in India, and so there's a lot of these little things harkening back to old school technology that are still thriving today in this shoe, which I really like. And the fact that they're using recycled plastic is cool because it helps reduce the 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic the world has produced since 1950. And polyester is a better material for a hiking boot because it's more abrasion resistant, it doesn't dry rot, it doesn't wet rot like cotton canvas does, and it doesn't absorb water nearly as much. Plus they put these overlays over top to give it even more durability and structure. So honestly, overall, right off the bat, I really like the upper of this because I just love canvas. It's an old school material. It did well in the puncture test with 168.5 pounds. And I just love that they're using some of the most high-tech foam and some of the more old school materials, combining both of them. I love it. But if we start looking at the inside, it's, you know, the top of the collar is just a typical like jersey material, but deep in the inside is a really strange material that I've never seen before. It's almost like a metallic-y looking interlaced material, and they don't really say much in the description of what it's for. I'm assuming it's moisture wicking or odor resistant. There's probably some features to it. I wish they would have explained it because it is a really wild looking material. Even under the macro lens, it looks pretty crazy. And obviously that's backed with the Gore-Tex waterproof lining. And we did the waterproof test just to double check that it is actually waterproof, and it passed just fine. And then if we pull the insole out, just a very basic insole, you know, it's topped with a little terry cloth and just basic foam, little closed-celled foam, nothing special. Bar drop test, it did 17.2 inches. And then if we look at the outsole before we get to the midsole, like they said, this is a Continental rubber, which is another German company, and it seems really, really thin. It's ridiculously squishy because it's so thin. And this is what had me a little bit worried when I first was hiking in these, that it would be almost too squishy where you feel every single rock underneath your foot. But I think the Boost foam did a really good job of actually insulating you from the over squishing of foam because of how it's structured, which we'll talk about in a sec. But this outsole is pretty decent. The lugs are 4 or 5 millimeters thick. The durometer is 70 Shore A, and it's just your classic lightweight hiking outsole. It's just a thin skin over top of the midsole to make it lightweight and still grippy, but you're never gonna get the same durability as you will out of a really, really thick outsole. But because it's so thin and so flexible, the strength of the shoe really showed when we did the bar drop test because it bounced up 8.6 inches, which is the 3rd best overall. So clearly Boost foam has some big effect on these boots. So let's cut them in half, see what's on the inside, and let's go over the Boost foam, why it works, how it works, and if it is a different Boost foam compound for the boots instead of the shoes. All right, we got it cut in half, pretty easy. Boost foam cuts like butter. So let's see what's inside it. So it is clearly Boost foam like we talked about, because you can see all the individual beads that are fused together that give Boost foam its unique properties and characteristics. So is it the exact same foam as all these other Boost foam that we've cut apart through the different Yeezys? And you know, Yeezy April's still going on this year. We got the, actually I've got them right here. These pods, they're coming out pretty soon. 20 Shore. So exact same Boost foam. I was kind of hoping it'd be a little bit stiffer and just a little bit more supportive, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of deal. So why is Boost foam so popular, and why is it still considered one of the best foams a decade after its invention? Well, the secret is in these little beads and how they don't completely melt and fuse into one homogeneous density of foam. The little shells around each of those beads are maintained, and those shells are just a little bit harder than the foam inside of each of those beads. And so what you end up with is a honeycomb kind of structure with super soft foam that's supported by the shells, which allows you to have all the squish of a super soft foam without feeling like you're walking in sand, because those shells force the foam to rebound, causing more energy return in each step rather than just one solid chunk of foam where all you have is a microscopic bubbles to rebound it. It's a similar concept of why bees have honeycomb instead of just one big pool of honey. Same thing as a mattress, why you don't just have one density of foam, you have all the different springs and different layers of foam. It's the combination of structure with the softness that really makes Boost foam so different. And one really cool thing is, due to the randomness of how all these beads fuse together, you get a very consistent and predictable squish rather than a true lattice structure or a honeycomb structure, because it's basically just really, really nice styrofoam, which another cool historical fact, was invented in 1944. So this boot really actually does tell a really interesting story of how some of our best material science harkens back to nearly 100 years ago, not due to the lack of innovation, but due to, assumingly, the lack of ingenuity on how to apply scientific breakthroughs to the things that we use every single day. It really makes you wonder what modern inventions that are invented today, maybe like AI, could be used today to completely change the world with just a little bit of curiosity and creativity that just hasn't happened yet, even though it's been invented. And that's why I love digging into every single detail of these boots and shoes. So despite all the history and the material science, is this a good boot at the end of the day? Is it worth buying? Is it a decent hiking boot? As we get into this more modern foam-based hiking boot series, well, I really, really liked it. It was up there with the most comfortable hiking boots that I wore for this series. It hikes really well, it grips well, and you can definitely feel the difference in just regular foam compared to Boost foam, because you do get that extra squish without feeling like you're walking in quicksand. And initially, 250 bucks sounded pretty steep, and I still think it is a lot for this style of modern hiking boot, but it was by far the softest and most comfortable underfoot out of all the boots that we tested. And some people are willing to pay a little bit of extra money just to get a little bit extra squish. But it definitely isn't gonna be the most durable boot for hiking, and especially for when you're really out there hiking deep into the country, because it is just fairly thin. You know, the Boost foam is a little fragile, the outsole's really thin, but for a very casual hiker, it's gonna be hard to beat this one in comfort. So let me know what other boots you want us to cut apart, and here's kind of a I was getting this wrong. Here's a breakdown of everything that we're gonna be cutting apart for this series. Let me know what else you want us to add to it, what you want us to test, what you wanna know about this style of more modern foam-based affordable hiking boots. And as for how this ranks on the board, it's the only one we've done, so #1. So let me know what you guys think, and if you've had a pair of these, let me know your experience in them. And thank you guys for supporting these videos. See ya.